Hey guys, so I wanted to do a video today going through all of the decks that I have out for December. I'm feeling really excited about the decks that I've pulled out and feeling like my practice has a flow again, because for a while it's been a little bit, I don't know, choppy. It's just felt choppy, but right now it feels like a really good flow. So anyway, let's get flipped around and look at the decks. All right, so you'll have to forgive me if there's a bit of kind of patchwork involved in this video because I had some technical issues. So refilming with fresh nails, which are going to become old nails, and then back to fresh nails. Anyway, the first couple decks that I'm going to start with are the more, I guess, morning or just midday practice if I feel like pulling cards. These are not journaling or for the purpose of journaling unless I felt called to, but and that is Hush Tarot and Lost Oracle. And I don't know that I've paired these together prior to this. I don't think I did last year. Pretty sure I didn't. I think I was pairing Lost with the Honasa House. But these paired together, I'm really enjoying and looking forward to. I'm kind of savoring Hush while I can. I don't think we have that much longer together. This is such the quintessential autumn deck for me that I want to make good use of it for as long as I can. I don't really feel drawn to work with it at any other point in the year. And then Lost Oracle, I just wanted to kind of have a little bit more of a relationship with it, and it is a perfect kind of quintessential witchy tap-in type of deck for me. So having it as a daily draw type deck has been interesting and I'm enjoying it so far. So as I've mentioned before with Hush, it's the kind of deck you kind of have to take your time with, and for a lot of the cards, figure out your own way in sort of deal. We'll see if any of them come through that that are something to talk about in particular. I'll mention it, but I really love this deck. It unfolds and unfurls in very interesting ways, and sometimes it can be a little frustrating because I'll pull a card and be like, why is that? Like, what is that? What is that? But if you kind of relax into it and open yourself up to the imagery, so far I have pretty much always found a way in, and I just find the imagery pretty fascinating and intriguing, and I love it this time of year. Autumn kind of had a long, drawled out progression to it this year. The leaves turned very late and lingered for longer than usual, I would say, but we did have our first snow today. So this one will probably be shifting out soon, but I'm holding on to it as long as I can. And then with Lost, I don't know, I love this as a kind of daily draw, a tap-in. I do think I journaled with it quite a bit last year, but that was kind of a tough October or November, so I don't really remember, to be quite honest with you. And the way I've kind of set it up to work with it, rather than what I had been doing with the daily draws, which would be the teacher, teacher, lesson, and wisdom, doesn't really feel right with these decks, so I've kind of switched over to kind of the lantern for the day, like what is the guiding light of the day to focus on, in a sense, and then what's above and below that, and I just let that become whatever it becomes as the cards come out. But yeah, I'm holding on to these, really enjoying them. I think Lost is great for kind of just tapping in and getting that kind of spiritually witchy perspective for the day. When I do kind of switch off of those, I have Seasons of the Witch Yule Oracle. This is the only Seasons of the Witch Oracle I have. It was a gift from my best friend last year, so I'm looking forward to pulling from this and getting to know this deck and seeing if maybe I might want a couple of the other ones. I don't know. I wouldn't off the bat think of this as artwork that would typically draw me in. I don't like strongly dislike it or anything, but it just isn't the typical type of artwork that draws me in. But I really like the messages that are on the cards, and I'm curious to see, like, in practice with the guidebook, how that works out for me. And this I'm just going to keep real simple because I don't want to make things more complicated for myself than they already are, and just be pulling one card maybe here and there. I don't kind of keep it staunchly every day or something, but I sort of figure in the weeks leading up to Yule, I'm going to be turning more to this once it shifts. I don't know. It snowed today, so this might be like in the next few days I start working with this because that was special. And then the next sort of category of decks, I should say, is kind of my, what do I call it? My all-purpose, my catch-all type decks. And that for tarot is Lacrimosa. I love this deck so much. I mean, it was the one I started deck diaries with. I might do more deck diaries with it. We'll see. It ends up kind of feeling so intimate, which is funny because like that first reading I did with it was on intimacy, and that was, I think, the first episode before I even did a deck interview spread. But yeah, it just winds up being so kind of intimate for me that I have to figure out how I'd want to navigate doing deck diaries with it. I do have some ideas that I'm going to kind of play out just to maybe do some exercises or something. We'll see. I'm just going to go with the flow. I don't want to make promises on this kind of stuff because I want it to feel natural. But I like to pair it with Obsidian. It's one of the many decks, but it's the one that I have out because it's just kind of such a great, straightforward little deck, and it pairs beautifully. I like the guidebook for this a lot. I've talked about it on the channel, so I won't go on and on about it. But these two together have paired beautifully, and I'm just kind of keeping this out as a catch-all for if I want to do an impromptu spread and it doesn't really fit into the journaling practice, like it's kind of a situational thing, because I kind of have some intentional stuff I'm doing. Otherwise, for journaling, this is sort of my catch-all. That's why I call it that. If I want to play around with creating spreads or testing out a spread or maybe reading for others, this is sort of where I'm feeling drawn to just have a deck out on my desk. That is all purpose. And I did just want to mention, because I figured this out last night, that I like it quite a lot paired with Memento Mori. And this, for me, serves more as a clarifier type deck. And I just thought they paired really neat together, all three. So a little bit of a deck family. I was hoping that Claire's Oracle of Oddities would arrive this autumn, but with everything that's happened international trade-wise, that's not happening, and I haven't really kept up with the latest update of it. But because I think that deck would sync up with me really easily. Memento Mori, I feel like I have to build a little bit more of a relationship with in terms of allowing myself to have associations with the cards. So I guess sometimes, you have to be in the headspace for that. But that's sort of the deal here. Like, oh, how beautiful is this? We have 8 of Swords with Mirror, and then Crow and White Candle. And just to give you a feel for this guidebook, because I do like to emphasize that it's a great little guidebook. Crow and Candle, we have Respecting Truth, Ritual, and Power. While crows are often feared as harbingers of death, the crow symbolism is to escort souls to the underworld. Powerful totem of magic and mystery. Candles represent light and truth. Then you go down to the little message. Open your mind to the power of magic and the mystery within life and yourself. Don't ignore the potential of tradition, but instead pay it the respect it deserves and needs. Embrace and explore the truth and origins, basically, of belief rituals and symbols, tapping into the strength that can be underestimated and underappreciated. Just sort of like giving the wisdom for how to deal with the Eight of Swords, and this is asking you to reflect. So that's sort of my game plan with these, is just to have them out. They're for a certain vibe. I'm feeling this vibe still. You know, it's the dark half of the year. So next up, we will have my study deck, and then the last two kind of sets of decks are my deeper journaling decks, because I kind of have like stuff I'm working through with them. So those are more for the dedicated deeper journaling. So the next deck, this is one I have had for, gosh, it might even be 2 years, and I've not, up until now, really done any kind of dive into it. I've pulled cards here and there, but I've not sank into it until recently. I really was like, man, I want to sink into this deck. And I'm pulling out the Oracle first, because the way I've started to work with this, just to explore it, is to pull out, shuffle and pull an Oracle card from the Oracle portion of this deck, which, by the way, is the Nameless One. I don't think I said that. And have that be the guiding theme for however long that seems like I'm working with that energy, until I feel it shifts, or that I've dealt with it, or worked around the idea of it. So there's something like 30 Oracle cards, and I can't name them because I don't know them well enough yet. But I think like this is bringer of powerful magic. So say I pulled this and that was the energy I was working with, I would keep that out. I have my card that I've pulled out on my altar on a special stand, but I would keep that out and then take the main tarot deck. If you haven't seen this deck, it's a big tarot with no names and sigils on each card, and it comes with this pack of oracles as well. But I would leave out the card Bringer of Powerful Magic and then be asking things related to that idea of what does this is sort of like, to me, these oracles are a lot like intention cards with the sigils on them, and then the way that they're titled and written about, they're like intention cards. So if you were going to do a spell with this and use the sigil, maybe I could sit with the tarot and pull cards for, where is my most powerful magic, or what is the nature of my most powerful magic? What blocks that or blocks my access from it? How can I unlock my most powerful magic? These are the sort of things I would, brainstorm some questions, and then maybe as I move along, pulling from the deck here and there on different days, I might feel inclined to expand into other questions, or just have another question based off the card that I pulled yesterday in response, that sort of thing. I let it unfold naturally, but I'm letting right now the oracle be my anchor point for what topics, so to speak, I'm turning to the cards with. One thing I'll say with this deck, I think most people have said, at least that I've watched videos of, talking about the Nameless One Tarot. When it comes to the court cards, it is a bit of a challenge. And the secondary reason it's a bit of a challenge, other than, the artwork's gorgeous and the symbolism is there, it's just identifying, because they're all masks in one way, shape, or form, except for the jester, which is the page. Of course, all the jesters are together. The masks, like the kings, the prince or princesses, and the queens, have a lot of similarities, so you have to be observant. And for example, this I know is coins because of the symbolism in here. I think we have, is this Virgo? It might be Virgo. And then we have the wheat. So I know this is in the element of earth, but I would need to double check the book as to who this is. I think it's either the princess or the queen, and I think it's the princess, just because sometimes in the degree of like crownage, you can get a sense of whether it's the queen or not, or the king. But so that's like a learning curve thing. But the other thing is the way Zia Hunt, the artist, assigns base elements to court cards is different than how I do it, which is fine. Nothing wrong with that. It's just I have to reorient myself to this deck when I'm working with it. So that's a bit of a work in progress. But other than that, when it comes to identifying the courts, there's symbolism within the mask. Like here, there's waves. And what else have we got here? Usually the elemental symbol, and then there's constellations and zodiac symbolism. So this is giving me Pisces, I think is the sign. Yes. And I think these are fish heads. So like it invites you to look closely into things. And I do like the idea, in a sense, of court cards as being masks. But there's just a bit of a learning curve. When it comes to the minors, the minors are the easiest thing because you can see in the artwork the sword or the, is it sticks or branches, I think, in this deck, or cups. Like you see all that in the artwork. If you need to, you can either count the objects, or the easiest way is in the sigil, the amount of dots correspond to what number the card is. But the artwork itself generally speaks to whatever that energy is in a way that's, at least for me, very easy. So the minors are very easy. The court cards are the most difficult. The majors are also pretty, like, I know them at this point and I've only flipped through the deck and not worked a whole ton with it. So the symbolism is there, but it's a little bit coded. It's a little bit mysterious. And so when I pulled this out, I sort of was thinking to myself, might I be leaning into working with Hecate? Because that's what I figured with this deck. It gave me that kind of vibe, like, yeah, this would be a good one to dedicate to her. I think it would suit working with her, but I wasn't sure because you don't know until you know. But I have so far liked and felt that this is in alignment with working with her, because as I'll get to, it seems that I am now. But yeah, it's a gorgeous deck. I'm very glad to be finally feeling ready to sink into it more. Now, the guidebook for this, there's kind of two options. Also, this reminds me, I haven't really mentioned, I don't think, there's a new kitty in my life, and she did something the other night that made me think of this card, just because of the cat on the shelf thing, because she climbed up onto the shelf and took a nap on top of the books, the uneven stacked books. It was hilarious. I'm calling her Little One for now. Here she is. She's adorable. I love her. She's like a failed almost foster, I think. I think we're keeping her. But the idea was to just give her a home until we could find her a home. But she's so stinking cute and sweet, and she's deaf also. And so it's like interacting with her is different than with other cats, because you have to like tap somewhere nearby to get her attention, or to wake her up without like totally startling her. And she makes the most adorable, magical, like Pokemon sounds. Anyway, speaking of guidebooks, it comes with this guidebook, which is great, honestly. You get, for each card, you get a full image over here. The cards are bigger than this, or pretty much a little bit bigger than this. But you get the image in the guidebook in full color. And then the title, sigil, affirmation, the upright and reversed meaning, it totally gives you enough. But I did get the grimoire because I think back when I ordered this, she was having a sale. And I'm not even going to bring that book over here because it's huge, and I generally have to kind of hang out on the floor with it to go through it. But that book's amazing. It goes into all kinds of depth about the image, and Zia's artwork is so intentional and so layered in symbolism. She's like a total wizard of a creator in terms of how much she's able to layer in between astrology and color and traditional symbolism, and like she's just like a huge source of information. And that grimoire is like, I don't know how she did that, and is so prolific. But anyway, awesome book. I've enjoyed diving into it. I don't always feel that I need to, which is why I say you don't need the book. It's just a beautiful thing to have. And to me, this is like a collector's deck. And I do really enjoy going into depth with her choices of symbolism and being able to read all of what was behind the intentions, because everything is so intentional in all of this. And yeah, so that is the Nameless One. So the next deck is the one that I wasn't sure if I was going to get, and I knew if I did, it was going to be a love or hate relationship type situation. That is the Witch's Tarot. But before I get real into it and take out the deck, I'm just going to do even more due diligence, or at least attempt to, and just be clear that this is a photographic art deck with like moody, ethereal, symbolic imagery, and some of the cards are depicting the human form in a very artistic way. I have, where I felt I needed to, in these days, done my best to block out bits of things that Big Brother doesn't like, and tried to make it appeasing for the modern nonsense. But yeah, this was one I was really thinking I wasn't going to get. I wasn't sure, with all of that said, I wasn't sure if this sort of, I knew it was fine art photography, but I wasn't sure if, how I was going to feel about the form being displayed in such a way by a male photographer. I'm just going to say it that way, because I know I've seen that brought up by others. I'm not the only one who's thought that, where it's like, was this kind of more gratuitous presentation of the female form, or is it like a respectful presentation, empowering presentation? And I really do feel that it is, especially in using the deck. Like, I've done 2 or 3 larger spreads with this, and 1 or 2 daily, well, I think it's just the 1 smaller pull, and it has been so poignant and beautiful and layered in its meaning. And the artwork of this deck, well, for example, like this 4 of Wands, I don't get off the bat, but I know that when I pull it, something specific is going to come out of this image to me that resonates with what it's responding to, because I've had that happen at this point with the other spreads I've done with this. So that's the gist of what I feel this one is presenting as. And you know what? Actually, before I start flipping through this deck, I do want to dive into the spread that I pulled and the deck that I pair it with. So this is the spread that I pulled after doing a couple of, wow, now that I think of it even more ironically, I think it was a full moon spread that I did with this deck. And what was the other one? Full moon spread, and I think I did like a very impromptu month ahead spread. But I was like, it was impromptu because I was trying to come up with a month ahead spread that I liked, because I'm toying with this whole divining ahead type of thing. And I needed to custom craft the kind of month ahead spread that worked for me. And I was toying around with it, and when I pulled the cards, I was like, ooh, let me record that. So I did that, and then I did a full moon spread. And then the other night, I felt called to work with Death Doula and It, because I've liked how these have paired together. And I believe I was journaling about my grief, because I have felt oddly numb to it. I've had a lot of, or several things happen this past year or so that make for a mountain of grief. And I have gotten to a weird place in the spiral that feels really numb to it. And I'm not sure I like it. In some sense, it's like, okay, maybe I'm coping. But in another sense, it's felt like, I think I'm keeping something in a closet. It feels like keeping something in a closet. So I turned back to the grief spread that I had used when I was initially processing or trying to move through grief, and turned to Death Doula because I thought it would pair well. I knew it paired well because I had used it in those larger spreads. But it serves this very specific purpose for me in grief of being a medicine deck for me. So I pulled a card for what the medicine was in response to me journaling about this weird place I'm at with my grief, and I pulled the moon. And then I pulled a card for what that medicine was for and why. And what it was for is death, and why was the star. So for me, and when you go into the guidebook for Death Doula, it's specifically speaking about exercises pertaining to following the cycle of the moon. So again, it's bringing me back to this idea of this comes and goes in waves and cycles and tides. And sometimes I'm really close to the pole of my grief, and other times I'm more distant from it. And working with this also, hold on. The other layer that added into this for me was in that full moon spread, I had pulled towards the end death and ritual magic, and used Death Doula to clarify with ritual magic, and pulled the moon from Death Doula. So I had remembered that once I pulled these cards and sort of was connecting it back to the overall messages that I got out of that full moon spread. And thinking about how, because I'm associating this deck a bit with Hecate, it sort of was giving me the energy of maybe work with the moon more. Maybe actually do the magic around it. Maybe let go when it's this point in the cycle where there's letting go, or move with the tides with symbolic ritual, and actually engaging with my grief in that way. So, that's the medicine for death, for letting go, for grief, for transition, and understanding transitions, and what has died in me, and what has died in my life, and all that kind of stuff. And the why, being the star, is beautiful because there's like this cocoon of renewal in this image to me. And again, you have these like cycling planet moon situation going on here. And it's being encased in this light, this kind of healing light. And so this spread was just really cool. And I think in the next clip, when I show you one of the decks that I also paired this with, it'll get even cooler. But for now, I just want to show how Death Doula looks with this, because I don't know that I was planning to pair these when I ordered the Witch's Tarot, but I really, really like them together. They're both photographic art. I imagine that Witch's Tarot has some more like digital photo manipulation involved, whereas Death Doula is all analog. But I've flipped through these a few times, and just thought that they pair so beautiful together. And when I've used them together for readings, they've synced up in such a unique way, where it just feels like they really resonate. So, art with Page of Wands, King of Cups, the Empress with Pleasure, and Eight of Cups. Did I say Eight of Cups already? Whatever. What did I do? King of Cups, no. It's like, how did I get to Eight of Cups? Malleable, Seven of Coins, Four of Cups. So they work together visually, but also in the energy of what these decks are touching on for me. This is grief, this is processing, this is the life-death life cycle, but it's like the blackening stage. I don't know, it's the whole cycle, honestly, this deck. And then for me, Witch's Tarot is showing up as like there's something a little more fierce about it, but it's also like a low humming. I'm describing it in the way that I sense it, but there's like a low comforting hum to it in a way. And I find that it tends to be pretty direct, and so does Death Doula, but in a way that's in service of your growth or processing difficult things. So I'm really enjoying these, and this is like my main pair that I'm working with at the moment. Just started, basically, because I just have that one pull, and I've sat on it for a few days. but later when I go to journal, these are the decks I'm going to be working with. Yeah, I think we're getting to the point where I no longer have little post-its over things Big Brother doesn't like, so I will call it there. But even, like, I don't know, there's something that just works about these together that I really love. The guidebook for Witch's Tarot is meh. I mean, it's just, it's just keywords. There's, when it comes to navigating the artistic choices of the imagery, the positioning, the symbolism, or whatever, that's all on you, babe. And sometimes I like that. I think I probably like that for this deck because it is such a strong, like, feminine goddess type deck. But I want to get to the other pairing that I'm looking forward to putting together with this. So let's do that. So another pairing I am looking forward to trying is the Witch's Tarot with Stone and Shadow Oracle by Ray Serafina Barker. I've mentioned this deck a few times on the channel before, and I adore this deck so much. I have often, since receiving it, just worked with it on its own. I really enjoy the poetry that comes along with each card and the layer of synchronicity it adds whenever I've pulled from this deck. And for me, I got this thinking about it being that Descent theme type of deck, and it's certainly lived up to that. And also, in working with it, it's kind of funny because the way these cards are laid out right now, I had shuffled this deck, riffle, shuffle, or waterfall, shuffle, and then overhanded it a bunch, and then flipped it over, already expecting this card to be on the bottom of the deck, which it was, because for me, this kind of straddles the line between Persephone and Hecate for me. And I think I was hoping for that, and I'm really glad that's come through. But even in the interview spread that I did with this deck, this card came up, I think, as either the work we were meant to do or what's beneath, like, the end goal of the work we were meant to do together. So thinking about that while shuffling this and then shuffling the Witch's Tarot to spread them out like this was kind of amusing, because as I was shuffling the Witch's Tarot, I thought to myself, wouldn't it be funny if the Hecate card shows up? And lo and behold, as I'm, because I had the deck, again, waterfall, riffle, shuffling, however you want to call it, overhanding it, and then ending up, splitting the deck into the two piles. The first side, the bottom card of the deck was the moon, and then the card I had split to was Hecate. So if that isn't confirmation, I don't know what is. And it goes back to that other reading I did with it, where we have death and the star, and the moon was in between. So I'm getting a pretty consistent message here, and we do have the new moon in Scorpio, which, from what I can understand, is astrologically rather significant for a new moon at this time. But it's all tying in and becoming confirming for me that these are a good pair to work with. Let's put it that way. But looking at them together, I think they work well visually, but also in the messages. I've really enjoyed flipping through this, because I flipped through this before I started filming, because I was just like, oh my God. When those things happen, you just kind of have to follow the thread there. They resonate very well together, like Eight of Swords, Fertile Shadow, Seven of Cups. There's a lot to glean out of the shadow energies of that Eight of Swords place. And I like this as an Eight of Swords. It's like her posture and demeanor convey that sense of withdrawn in and reserved, and maybe that sense of incapable is sort of the word that comes up for me, that self-limiting kind of incapable. There's sort of this, with her arm crossed, there's like a insecurity, or I'm not finding the right word for what's coming up for me at the moment, but you get what I mean, hopefully, with the image. And then Seven of Cups. I love this Seven of Cups. I'll just hold it like this just in case. With the moon cycles running around her crown, and the veil, and eyes closed, all of it. So I think these will be really fun to work with, or really, I don't know if fun's going to be the right word, but really profound to work with. But we'll see. I haven't really felt like diving into this deck because it hits pretty deep, and I haven't felt like quite going there yet, but it's coming around, and it'll be interesting to see if I do in fact want to pull tarot into working with it. I've used Deathly Flowers with it, I think, at a point in time, and sometimes I've just kept it a card out kind of on its own and then pulled tarot around the idea of it without it being in the spread. Does that make sense? I don't know. Somehow that kind of works for me. But I think they look pretty neat together. I think thematically they absolutely work well together. It's an interesting pair, and while for some reason the art sort of feels, it's not like the perfect pair for me in some way, in terms of theme and energy, and of course, having this be where these cards all landed, just to flip through them for the first time together, just confirms for me that these can get along in a very particular way. And it's all just interesting in the ways that this has connected together with Hecate's associations with the moon in ways that differ from goddesses like Artemis, who I am more familiar with. And I've kind of restricted myself a bit, or withheld from going deep into research, because I just want to experience what comes up, and I have sort of gotten that sense of meet me where I am and I'll meet you where you're at, if that makes sense. Before I go I like looking into things after the fact, you know what I mean? It's like a confirmation thing for me. And to have this other reading that came up with Death, the star, and the moon from Death Doula between as the medicine, it's interesting to then have this situation, which while it wasn't a proper reading, it was like the first introduction between these two decks, and the card I recognize as the torchbearer in this one with Hecate and the moon coming up. It's interesting. And all of this, this spread, I think I pulled, it was the beginning of the crescent moon. And now we are a day out from the new moon, the dark moon, and that being heavily tied to her. So interesting stuff, interesting gateway to open up with into this work. We'll see where it goes. So that is Witch Sister, Death Doula, Stone and Shadow Oracle, pulling that one in here. These are going to be kind of like my keystone journaling decks. But I do have another set of decks in the same line of work for the purpose of journaling, but that have a very different vibe to them, and I think are approaching things from a different aspect. And I'm very excited about them. So let's dive into those. Okay, so this is a new tarot deck that I just, probably before this, posted the walkthrough of, and I really didn't think I was going to be diving into it until maybe some weeks from now, a little bit more into the thick of winter. But I kind of immediately fell in love with it, and also unexpectedly feel a connection with it to Hecate. So that is the Honey Lavender Tarot. Now, in my walkthrough, I mentioned that I thought the golden yellow matte edge wouldn't have been my pick for the edging, but I since had my generator in my brain kick on and actually power my brain to realize that it's the honey in the Honey Lavender Tarot, because there's really not that much in the way of golden color or yellow, although there are bees in at least one or two cards. But anyway, this deck is so beautiful. And I keep falling more and more for it because it has such a beautiful narrative atmosphere. And I'm finding it very easy to intuitively read with. Whereas the Witch Sister Tarot, I really have to get to know it. I have to work a little more to see what I'm meant to see, to kind of relax into what I'm seeing or the message received. This one is a lot more like, I guess it falls into that category of like illustrated storybook. really pulls me into the narrative of the deck. And the reason I got this deck in the first place, other than it looked really cool, but specifically my justification for it was this Oracle deck that I've not really been able to work with. I've had it for a couple years, but I just haven't felt connected in with it. And I wanted a tarot deck that was like a perfect pair for it, so that when I pulled a card and wasn't quite sure what to take from it, for me personally, or the context of it, I had something that would serve that purpose to be able to go deeper into things. And that would be the Loputyn Oracle. I love this deck. I've had it for a long time. I think I might have to pause to censor this. Hold on one second. Okay, there's really a minority of cards. Well, this might be one that I can't. There's a minority of cards overall in the deck that I'm not gonna bother risking it. So we can look at most of this as a pair. But I can't even tell you how happy I am to have a deck that will pair with this in a way that works for me, because I kind of need there to be the visual. Okay, unexpected alarm went off. But what I was saying is I kind of, when it comes to pairings, for the most part, need to feel like there's some sort of visual cohesion or complementary situation going on, so that I can sink into, like, where it feels cohesive. If they feel disjointed, my eyes start to do this thing where I'm looking at it in like choppy segments, and then it just kind of disrupts things for me. This pairs so beautifully together. And I do have a reading in retrospect that I might post after this with these decks used together, because I really enjoyed the first reading and they read beautifully together. So this is another journaling pair that I think will be for a slightly different angle of working. This is very personal story, whereas I feel like Witches and Death Doula is working through some stuff, maybe more shadow work stuff around grief and processing and becoming. There's, I'll get into this more in practice diaries, but there's like a whole specific realm that I have felt connected to with those decks and with tapping into Hecate. So this is sort of a different angle. It's softer. It's a little more speaking to maiden, I think, type energy for me. And I really, 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 really am so jazzed about this pair. But the reason that I say it's kind of leaning like a Hecate deck for me is the moon card, which would be really cool if it would pop up, unless it already came up. I don't even know. But it came up in the reading I did. And it just felt like a synchronistic thing. I love this Five of Cups with like an old worn letter that's been read and gone back to and not let go of. The Suit of Cups in this deck is a favorite, and there's a lot of water energy in what I'm working through at the moment. Oh, where is she? We passed her. Okay, I was being a bit of a dodo bird because I had this card out on my altar, but this is Hecate to me, and the fact that it showed up in the way that it showed up in my reading just kind of seals the deal for me, and it feels very resonant to be working with these decks. Now, there's one more deck that is in this realm here for me. It winds up becoming a bit of a deck family, which is exciting because it's kind of hard to find 3 decks that all pair together. Because like the Lacrimosa, Obsidian, Memento Mori pair, it works, but this is like top tier pairing for me. And I get excited about that kind of thing. I love curating. Anyway, so the little deck going along with this is the Wolves Within. And for me, this is serving as a clarifier. Let's see, I might have to back us out. Okay, so we'll look at it this way. But the Wolves Within, I've had this one for a minute. I sort of selectively have used it because it hasn't felt like it fit in quite right somewhere. But it fits in perfectly. And I wasn't even thinking about that in this whole journey here. And I've been working with it so far more as a clarifier, which I think is where it lends itself best as use. So this has all, oops, can I show that? I don't know. I'm not going to risk it. So this is a wolf themed deck, and it's black dog energy. So as you can imagine, it ties right in. I've also used it in working with Hades and really enjoyed that. But I think that these all together, just gorgeous. And when I share the readings in retrospect, I kind of show how I worked it all in. I only pulled one card from this just because I had one little area I wanted to clarify, but I just really like how they all tie in together, and I'm very much looking forward to working more with them and for these to be journaling decks and to finally be sinking deeper into Loputyn, because I love the deck. I'm like drawn to it, but I just up until now haven't been able to tap in. And the moment I paired all of these together, it was like finally the lights were on in the house and I could see where I was moving around. So I'm very, very excited about this pairing. So I hope you enjoyed kind of taking a peek into what decks I have out for this month or for this time being, because I think it might kind of lay over into January. We'll see. And I look forward to catching up with you in practice diaries when I reflect on how all of this went. Other than that, I'd love to know, what decks are you pulling out? What's drawing you in? Which ones are calling to you at this point in the year? And especially I'd love to hear if you have any that are unexpectedly calling to you this time of year, because I kind of always like that, the unexpected decks that show up. As I wouldn't have thought, I guess this does have a winter vibe, Loputyn, in a way, with all its blues, but wasn't really quite expecting it. And I certainly wasn't expecting to be so immediately drawn in with honey lavender. Oh, and by the way, real quick, before I go, my nails are totally inspired by the deck. And funny enough, did not do this consciously on purpose. Unfortunately, these are both polishes I don't think you can get, but maybe you could find similar colors. The darker color is Virgo. And this is from Ethereal, who I think has changed their name now, so I don't even know what it is, but this is an old polish. I think I got it, an open bottle from a resale site anyway. So I don't know that you could find it, but maybe you could find something similar to this in color. If you look up pictures and go on nail forums, people will help you out. And then this one, the lighter color on my nails, I kid you not, favorite of Hecate. Yep, that just kind of happened. And again, I'm just rolling with it as a sign that that this is meant to be happening, because it just kind of worked out perfectly. So I figured I'd mention them because I will totally forget later on if someone comes around and asks, and sometimes people ask what polish I am wearing. So yeah, maybe you could find something similar. Honestly, you can usually find dupes for things, and if you go on like indie nail polish groups, people will generally help you out to find a close similar to something. Fun fact, back in 2020 when there was the whole sourdough bread making thing, or 2020, 2021, I didn't end up doing that. I wound up making nail polish. So I kind of got really into it and thought maybe I would do more with that, but it really smells to be mixing up nail polish, and the amount of ventilation that I would need to not, like I literally got sick at one point from sitting for like an hour or two mixing polish in a room that probably didn't have the adequate ventilation you would need to be doing that. And I just sort of, I don't want to say lost interest, but I certainly got a little bit turned off from the idea of doing more with that on any kind of meaningful scale. But anyway, completely rambling off topic. I'm going to let you go. I hope you have a lovely day, evening, or whatever it is by you, and I'll catch you in the next one.